Leave your ego at the door and get ready to be raw. This is Strength to Overcome, where real men find their strength in weakness. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Strength to Overcome podcast. I'm Ryan here with my co-host Matt. This is episode 26. We're excited to be with you. We've got an amazing guest on today's episode. Paul Tringali is with us. He is a member of the Crunch Fitness team at Lakewood Ranch. Been going on 12 years there as a trainer. He's the top man month after month, and he makes it look easy while he's doing it. So, Paul, we're really excited to have you on, brother.
Absolutely. Yeah, me too. We've been talking about it for a few weeks now and finally here. So pretty excited about it.
Yeah, so you've been with Crunch for quite a while, and I'm guessing that's your full-time gig if you've been with them that long, correct?
Yeah. And prior to that, I was with a company called Lifestyle Family Fitness for probably 10 to 12 years with them too. So two big companies. I like the environment of a club, that's got lots of members so you can engage with lots of different people. I like that better than like being in like a private studio. So
Mm-hmm.
the more the merrier kind of thing.
Yeah,
And it's been working.
that's awesome. And so you probably first met Matt, what, 3 or 4 years ago when he first came into the studio? Is that kind of how you guys connected first off?
Yeah, I transferred from the Carrollwood location to manage the Lakewood Ranch location, and Matt was one of the trainers that was there. Stepped into a pretty good situation with a bunch of great trainers that were there. And then one by one, they decided to step away and do their own thing. It's kind of like the business, how things generally work. And then about 5 months into it, I stepped away from management, and now I'm just training people. It's something that I've always loved to do. I like the one-on-one interaction. I do a lot of multiple people's sessions. They seem to like that, where they get more out of more from the buck, basically. But the camaraderie that I'm building and the community, it's something that's really important to me. So instead of my client just having me, they have 2 or 3 other brand new friends that they've gotten from the experience, and it's a lot of fun. It's fun for me and fun for the clients.
That's awesome. So you're saying you're training multiple people at the same time?
Yeah. I've done that for quite some time. What I used to do is I invite people in on a Saturday morning, like all my clients, and I would do like a big group, and I would see who gravitated towards each other, and I'd be like, you work out at 10 and you work out at 10:30. You guys want to work out together? I'll train you from 10 to 11 and you get the hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then I usually add another person to that. So, yeah, it's been my shtick, and it's a lot of fun.
that's
Very
awesome, man.
enjoyable.
Matt and I have talked a lot about kind of that semi-private model because, as you know, as a trainer, you've only got so many hours in your day, and there's only one of you. So, and you've only got one 6 o'clock slot, one 7 o'clock slot. So to be able to pair people up, that's huge. Matt, did you know he was doing all that in there?
Yeah, it's funny because I had to go through their crunch camp, onboarding. I've been through it so many times now, coming back. It's interesting sitting there, and of course, during the crunch camp, they're saying, right, these are the absolute parameters on training. And of course, as they're going through the list of things that you absolutely must do, I'm just sitting there thinking of Paulie, breaking each and every one of them. And he does it through love. He does it through compassion. He does it through energy. He is literally a poster child for people gravitating towards him and wanting to be part of that group, 2 or 3 or 4 people. And he's got this little following, every hour on the hour of these people coming in. And there's just an energy that follows him around the room. Yeah. And this is a 40,000 square foot facility, I think, maybe bigger, but you can definitely tell where Paulie's at because there's a glow, there's a feeling of some really good stuff is happening in that area. So, it might be against the protocols, but he's the man that can pull it off, and he's been doing it for a long time. And I don't think they would want him to change that model either because it creates something that not many people can pull off, you know?
Yeah, that's cool, man. I can tell just in the first 5 minutes of talking that you're not the type of trainer that's standing there with a clipboard looking at your watch, waiting for the hour to be over, right? It's a much more
No,
interactive experience than that.
so much fun. I feel like an air traffic controller sometimes. People moving here, people moving there, high-fiving other members that aren't working out with me. You know what I mean? I just think it's really important to, even the people that don't train with me, let them know that they're important as well. And I think everybody in a big gym environment, how many times you can go on about your day and no one even says hi to you. No one nods their head or nothing. So I try to make sure that I say hi to every single member. I may not know their names, but I give them a nod, talk about maybe their favorite football team, where they're from, and just to get to know them on a little bit of a deeper level, instead of just surface level. So yeah, it's really, like I said earlier, it's been exciting for me to be a part of a big organization like that. Started out really small, almost like a family gym, and now we're kind of big corporate. But we've kept it right, Matt. We've kept it pretty good.
Well, it's been great to have you back there. I think you and I talked a little bit before I reignited my fitness career after being out for 3.5 years, and I did chat with you several times before making that decision to come back, because it was important to me to know what I was getting back into, who was in charge, what was the mothership like, because you and I have both been in charge of a club. We've both had that responsibility on our shoulders, and at times we've both stepped away from that, and it was important for me to understand from you, what's going on, why. And, I think at the end of the day, all three of us on this chat have been in, very high positions of gym responsibility or power or ownership, right? And we've all at some point or another, we've stepped away from that. And so my question would be to you guys, do you feel that you stepped away at some point because you were losing touch with the people, or was it that you burnt out? What were the reasons behind sort of stepping away from, holding the reins, so to speak?
I'll go first, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, for me, being the owner and the manager is definitely a lonelier path. Just to be perfectly honest, I was making less money than my coaches, and I was running the payroll numbers, and I'm like, well, I've got coaches that are making more than I'm taking home as the owner of the facility, and it's a tough situation to be in. You start doing the math, and you're like, well, wow, I could just go be a personal trainer full time and make more than I'm bringing home as the person who's bearing all the responsibility and shouldering all the weight of this whole operation. So for me, that was kind of the writing on the wall of like, hey, you need to kind of look at a different path. Was that similar to what you were dealing with, Paul?
It was probably maybe 8 years into my career where I stopped taking care of myself. I stopped working out and wasn't really into it. I think I might have been starting to play a little more golf than I was. I was also bartending at the same time, so didn't have a lot of time, but I worked long nights and the days got even longer. So I think when I stopped taking care of myself, like I wasn't really into taking care of my clients for a blip there, probably 6 months to a year. And I finally talked to one of my manager actually pulled me aside. He said, the reason you're one of my best coaches, but the reason why you're not getting any clients is you don't even look the part. You don't even look like you're interested in being here. So I think when I regained that passion for taking care of myself and feeling good and really buying into what I'm trying to sell to people, and I'm not really trying to sell anybody anything except health, happiness, you know, stress-free living, more energy, all the things that we always tell people that which we're doing to help them. I think when I started taking care of myself, it reinvigorated me, and that's when I switched to Crunch, and I've been on a pretty good run right now. So yeah, just sometimes you go through things in life, that takes the passion out.
Now, what's your schedule like right now? Because I've got a picture of like, a super successful trainer doing a lot of clients, a lot of revenue coming through. I'm in my mind, I'm like, God, he's got to be grinding all day long, all week long. What's your daily schedule, your weekly schedule looking like?
I've learned over the years is to work smart, not hard. So I work probably 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe 2 days a week at 5 o'clock in the morning, and most other days 6:30 to about 12:30 or 1 o'clock. 2 days a week I come back in the afternoon. Um, and I'll do like one or two clients then. I do a family twice a week. So it's three people that I'm training there. Um, Probably train anywhere from 10 to 14 clients a day, where I'm not getting burnt out. I'm not there all day because I did the 5 a.m. to the 8 p.m. And that's kind of leads to that burnout that you get. So for me, it's not really about the money. You know what I mean? It's about helping people. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like to make more money, but at the end of the day, I'm not able to do that and stay focused if that was what drives me.
Paul, what would you say drives you? have come back after 3.5 years, and of course, this club's got 27 or 28 trainers there, and I think when I left, you were the manager, and I don't know, maybe what was it, 15? I'm not sure, but it was 15 veterans, and now I've kind of walked in, and it's almost like you've got this split team, not down the middle, and there's not a good or a bad side. It's just that you've got this veteran vibe out of some of the older trainers, and I put myself into that category, and then you've got the new blood that's coming in. How do you find the new blood coming in? As someone that's been doing it for so long, and I'm in the same boat, watching these guys come in and get their craft on and watch them go through the process. What's it changed in you as far as how do you help them? How do you service the new kids? Because they are the future of the business. We're not going to be training forever. So I've watched you, but how do you feel about new blood? And I'm not new blood in this case, but there are definitely new ones that were hired in my run in September. So how do you feel about that?
I'm always welcoming to the new people that come aboard, but as a non-management now, it's not my responsibility, but I think it's all of our responsibilities to make sure we welcome people and we make sure that you know that they buy into what the team is. Usually you fit in. You're either going to fit in or you're not going to fit in. You know what I mean? And I think it's about the culture that we created at that club. You know what I mean? We have a high volume of our trainers are Christians, that are just, we don't hide it. We send each other songs and messages and, very supportive of each other. And I think with the gym that I walked into, with all the high-end veterans, and I won't mention any names, but very successful and very good trainers, but they wouldn't help the younger kids. They wouldn't show them the way, or hey, shadow me. I mean, anyone could shadow me. They can more than welcome to do that. But I think that's the difference between the club I walked into and what it is now. You know what I mean? I think it's that vibe. You know what I mean? You got to have a super, super positive vibe in the gym, and I think we've accomplished that. And just chit chatting with them when we're on the side. You know what I mean? I don't really tell them what to do. They look at us, and I think they follow how we practice. We do.
What do you think drives you? Because, after 3.5 years out of the business, it took a lot for me to get back in, and that's part of my story in the previous 25 episodes for people to catch on. But what drives you to do what you do? Because it is exhausting, as both of you know. It's a lot of work to put yourself in front of 10 to 14 clients a day, different personalities, different energies. What drives you to keep on going after this long in the gig?
I just think for me, it's knowing that my clients, I'm making an impact on my clients. You know what I mean? Like, I have a client from my hometown, where I grew up on Long Island, and he graduated with my sister, and he came to me, and I think he was like close to 290, 295. He's down to below 250 now, like 248. I think we just broke the 250 barrier. He bought a suit less than a year ago that was like a very expensive suit and doesn't even fit him anymore. I think it's doing things like that, meeting with a brand new client that has trained with two or three other trainers in the gym that are no longer there, and making her finally happy with the process and how it's supposed to go and how things should be. Not saying anything bad about our old trainers, but you just you got to create happy guests. You know what I mean? And when they come into the gym, I treat everyone like a guest. You know what I mean? Like a guest in our home. I'm picking up towels, the paper towels up on the floor. I'm emptying out garbage cans if I'm not busy. And I don't have to do those things, but I just think it's important for the members and the coworkers to see, someone work like that. So that's part of the last question that you asked Matt too. And what drives me is making my people happy. They generally know that they have less stress and more energy and smiles on their face when they leave as to when they came in the gym. So I love it. I truly love it.
Yeah, it creates a lot of smiling faces on the way out. They're not always happy while they're there because it's hard work, right?
Yeah,
If anyone gets it, you two will get what I'm saying there. Not that they're not having fun in it.
absolutely.
It's hard while you're in it. I know some of your backstory, and you've been through some pretty tough times and some heartache. And as I've come back into the gym and I've watched you from a distance, I'm moved at how much love and joy that you do have around you for even people that are just walking past you, let alone your clients. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that story that I know, but I'd like to hear it again, and Ryan doesn't know and our audience don't know it? Can you share a little bit about, a few years back and, having kids and going through the, becoming a dad stage and some of that, because we've got a lot of listeners that are becoming dads or have been dads for a little while and things are tough. So can you speak a little bit about that and share that?
Do you want me to start with sharing about the accident, or you want me to go back with me being a father? I mean, I started out
Well,
as a father, had 3 boys, and James, Anthony, and Nicholas. And I got divorced. I was married young. I got divorced fairly young. I think I was 29 or 30 years old. And that was tough. Tough living in separate households. You know what I mean? So for young dads, that are in it, stay in it. You know what I mean? Because it's your family. Family is very important. It's very important that you do things the right way. Obviously, so that was tough. That was a tough part, like not being there all the time. Like when I drop them off at night and not being able to make them dinner or do their homework with them. A lot. That was tough for such a young at such a young age. But it was really tough being a young dad at 22. 23 years old, I think James was born in 1992. But I tried my best, you know what I mean? I did the best I could, and maybe I fell short. I don't know. But um, I think what we're looking to talk about today is the tragedy that happened in my life, and it was November 5th, 2020. I think it was November 5th. Yeah, pretty sure it was November 5th. And I was working at Crunch in Carrollwood, and I got a call, bunch of texts on my phone. I don't really ever carry my phone on me when I'm with my clients because I don't want to get distracted by text or anything like that. I might check it every now and again. So it was 12:26. It's so weird, like when you go through things like this in your life, the numbers you remember and the things that happened. But my son James, I think, called me and left me a text. He said, "Dad, you gotta call mom, or you got this, Nicholas is in the hospital down in Miami." So, I was in Tampa. I literally was training, I forget his name. I'll think of his name in a little bit, but he was a really close friend of mine, and I told him what happened. He said, "Go, go, go." So I literally went home, packed like a bag, like I think I threw a pair of underwear, shorts, and a T-shirt. I wasn't thinking. And I got in the car and I drove down to Miami, and actually, I called my sister, who I was kind of not in the best of places with, and she found out what happened, and she called me, and I picked her up, Sarasota, and she drove with me over there. Thank God, because she really helped me out. So we get to the hospital, and I think it was like close to 5:30, 5:30 at night, and my son Nicholas got there at around 9 o'clock in the morning, and he was airlifted. He was in a ATV accident. He was going to school, Florida State. Sorry for being all over the place. I'm trying to catch up here. He was going to Florida State. He was a senior, and he went down to with a buddy of his, Steven, to pick up another dog because he was going to breed his dog Mello, who I call my first grandson, with his new dog. And on the way down, he dropped him off at a friend's house. They all went out the night before. And before they were going to go jet skiing in Miami, and then they were going to leave to go back to Tallahassee later that day, his friend woke up and said, "Let's go on an ATV ride." And they went to an open field, and the accident happened. And what happened was it was like a two-seater ATV, and it kind of ejected Nicholas out and flipped over, and it fell on top of him. It wasn't like any trauma to his head or neck or anything like that, but it was a very heavy machine. It was, I think, a Kawasaki or a Yamaha. I forget the brand name, but Kawasaki. And his friend couldn't get it off of him. And it was 7:30 in the morning. It was the morning of election day. We remember events too. And the friend ran across the street to to a house and started banging on the door, and no one answered. And then finally he ran back to the fields and was trying his best to get this thing off my son. And finally he was jumping up and down, and the neighbor came out from across the street and helped get the vehicle off of my son. They called an ambulance. That guy that lived across the street was actually the emergency room doctor at the hospital that Nicholas ended up going to. Disappointingly, didn't do CPR. I guess he was giving my son's friends directions on how to do it. And I think it ended up being like in between 8 to 12 minutes of that vehicle on top of him, not allowing him to breathe. So they called it a severe global anoxic injury. And it was airlifted to the hospital and was fighting for his life for roughly 17 days. And it was during the midst of COVID. And, excuse me, I think the third day that he was in there, there was a security guard that had a problem with me spending time in the room because during COVID, you weren't supposed to be in the hospital. You know what I mean? So I would get my cup of coffee and I would sit outside the hospital. I would just sit outside, where the emergency room door was. And I sat out there for 2 days, just a cup of coffee for like 8 hours. I would leave to go grab something to eat and I'd just come back. I just felt like I needed to be, by my son. Anyway, there was another lady at the front desk that was really helpful to me. She came out. She goes, you're still not letting you in? I said, no, they're not letting me in. And I think 2 days later, they finally realized how dire the situation was. So they let me in. And on November 22nd we got a phone call at like 4 o'clock in the morning saying that, from my sister, telling me I need to get to the hospital. And apparently they were shifting Nicholas and he went to cardiac arrest, I think, and they couldn't help him at that point. So, um, so that was a club I never really wanted to be a part of. I knew people that lost their kids, and I was always the type of person that could feel someone's pain. Man, you can feel a lot worse when it happens to you, but it's definitely a rough time for me. And then what made it even harder was when my father was having a really hard time with it. They always say worst thing that could happen is losing a kid, but I think for a grandfather to lose a grandson, probably pretty rough too. 45 days later, my father was in the hospital. I think he was in there for maybe a couple weeks. He had COVID. But I remember him calling me, before he went to the hospital. I remember him crying a few times, and I never see my dad cry, ever. And so I knew it was hitting him pretty hard too. And he was in a hospital, and it was actually the day of Nicholas's memorial. My brother James was supposed to pick up my father at the house and then bring him back for Nicholas's memorial. And my brother found him. Actually, this was the memorial. I'm sorry, the memorial was like 2 weeks prior to my father passing, but he wasn't able to make it to the memorial. He rushed to the hospital, and so 45 days after Nicholas passed, I lost my father. And then I think 2 months after that, my dog, my basset hound, Sophie, had to be put down. And then I'm driving to work, and I'm driving to work one day, and 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning, and a deer runs across the road and just hits the car, totals my car on the way to work. So airbag blows up in my face. I get out of the car, make a phone call to Nancy, who still works at Matt knows Nancy over at our gym. She transferred down from Carrollwood because her and her husband moved to Riverview, and I just lost it. I said, Nancy, I said, I don't know what else could happen to me. I'm sitting here, let lightning strike me right now, bitch. I was just like so overwhelmed. It was tough times, and I was really sad, angry, all the emotions that you get from all that stuff. I know, you go in and out of faith in your life, whether you're super faithful at one point in your life. I'm always really faithful. Not really. I don't go to church now, but I have before in the past. And I think what this did for me is really made me reflect on life, and how precious life is, and how, you know, God does things, he didn't do this, it wasn't something that he did. It's just something that happens. And I'm not going to get the quote exactly right, but I don't know if you guys know, Mike Tyson lost his daughter when she was like 4 years old, like a treadmill accident. And he was being interviewed, and the guy's like, I don't know how do you do it? Like, how do you function? He's like, look, life is about good things that happen in life, and there's about bad things happening in life. And unfortunately, we can't choose just the good things, because the good things are going to do things that make us who we are, and the bad things are going to do things to make us who we are. And then I just started to pray, God, like, what, what, what do I do from this? What do you want me to do? And it just hit me. It's like what I'm doing is I'm already serving people, but now I just want to help people overcome the things that happened to me. So a friend of mine, Jimmy Weagle, a friend of mine since I was 9 years old. We played baseball together, Little League Baseball, high school sports. He lost his son probably 6 months, maybe 6 months after I lost my son. So he's one of the guys that he leans on me a lot. He leaves me a lot of texts, having a tough day today, you know what I mean? And I'll send him a song, or I'll send him, a saying, something to make him feel better. You know what I mean? So, yeah, if you guys want to ask me any questions about that, I just, that's, that's, it's roller coaster, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Ryan?
Definitely powerful stuff there. Thank you for sharing. And, I never would have guessed that much pain and that sort of thing based on, the start of our conversation. But it's just amazing what, the human can overcome and get through when they're up against it. So it's just amazing.
Yeah, I was glad that I was looking at the timer on this and just thinking, wow, we spent 12 or 15 minutes just talking about the energy that you have in a room of a place that's got 10 or 12,000 members. And I don't think anybody knows your story, or most don't. And if they knew your story, I think more people, which hopefully we can reach more people through this, but I think if people knew what you'd been through and then understand who you are now, I don't think anyone would almost believe it, to be honest with you. It doesn't make sense that you can have such joy in you to help others, but have been through that, because I think most times people that have been through even one of those things fall off the wagon for a long, long time. And you had more than anyone should have in a very, very long time. I mean, I'm moved. I mean, and I knew most of that story, but I'm moved and I work with you. And this is partly why I came up to you a couple of weeks ago and said, man, would you share that? Because as I watch your energy as I come back into this facility, and I've come back feeling a little down and out through some things in my life, and I've watched you, and this is why it was important for me to come back to this place, because you are an inspiration to me, and I don't want to be a part of your club. I've lost my dad and mum, and of course I've lost pets, but I would never choose to be in your club. And I think, Ryan, you've got a 12-week-old baby at home. Uh, and it probably hits you harder now hearing Paul's story to even think that we outlive our kids.
Hmm.
I don't know how that hit you, Ryan, but has it changed how you might think you would handle that now?
Yeah, it's definitely something to reflect on. And I think, like Paul kind of mentioned, you probably never really think you're going to be the one that has to go through it or experience it until it does happen to you, and you have to push your way through it. So it's definitely something to reflect on.
Paul, can I ask you, how do you cope with that pain? Because, I mean, I'm moved just hearing it. And I've got two little girls, for those who are only watching this episode, which I think is going to happen. There's a lot of people that love you and know you, and they're going to see that you've done an episode. And so those that don't know me, I've got a 4 and a 5-year-old girl, and the thought of anything happening to them, even a bump or a scratch or a busted tooth, just makes me sick. So, thinking through what you've gone through, it just hurts me as well for you. How low did you get, if you don't mind sharing that? And how did you dig yourself out of that?
Low, like never like abuse. I didn't get into alcohol or drugs or anything like that. Um, it was more of that I describe I describe it this way. That you guys have seen, most people have seen Back to the Future, the movie, and when he goes back there and there's a picture of his family, and his sister and brother start disappearing, as he realizes that what he's done has changed the course of time. That's kind of like what it feels like for me. It feels like that picture is forever changed. You know what I mean? I reached out to one of Nicholas's friends. I try and keep in touch with a few of those guys. And Salim was always like one of my, favorites because he was a tiny little guy, but he was a really, he was on my basketball team, and I always tell stories about how I used to tell him to, you got to guard the best guy on the team, and he would do it, and we would win. And anyway, I texted him a few weeks ago, and he was happy to hear from me. He's working construction in Mexico, and he sent me a picture of his son. He had a son, and like I was so happy for him. You know what I mean? But I was also sad, for Nicholas. It's like he's never going to feel that. But how I get through it is through helping people. I have a brand new client, Marie, who opened up to me. Opened up to me about her son that passed away, and he was 22 when he passed away, and it was 10 years ago. And Nicholas was 22, and it was 5 years ago. And I shared it with her, and you know, you never know who or what people are going through until you talk to them. And I think that's why I talk to so many people. I want to get to know you. I don't just want to know what your favorite football team is. Tell me about your kids. You know what I mean? Tell me about your life. And when they open up, to things like this, and it leads to conversations like what I had with her, and I shared a song with her, and uh, it's a song called "Beat You There," and it's by Will Dempsey, and it was coming up all over the place after Nicholas's accident, and on Instagram, it's amazing how these phones know exactly what you're going through every time you go through it, and I just listen to that song, and I just bawl and bawl and bawl, and I cry every day, guys. Every day I cry. It's just how long, you know what I mean? But every day I laugh. So, Marie is a client and lost a son, and I shared that song with her, and she was like, "What a beautiful song! Thank you so much. It means the world to me." And that's what I do. I don't seek it, you know what I mean? But I also know that it's when sometimes I'll give Matt a hug. Matt will walk in the gym. A lot of times I'll hit him in the arm, his arm that's all messed up, and I got to apologize for that. But a lot of times I give him a hug, and he probably doesn't even know why I'm doing it. I just felt like maybe he needed it. You know what I mean? So you never know who needs a hug, because no one's ever going to say, "Hey, hug me. I need more." You know what I mean? So I open up doors for people. I just, I don't know. I get through it by being a better person, you know?
Did you see or can you now, looking back, see a shift in who you were to who you are now?
Oh, yeah. You're not the same. You're definitely not the same person. I mean, your personality is similar. You have, you have that same, great, whatever your great attributes are, whatever the bad attributes you are, you're still the same that way, but it changes you. And, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but, I'm going to be 56 in a few weeks. And, circles seem to get smaller. The circles become bigger. You know what I mean? Like the gym life. It's like, it's like that. But your mortality, that changes a little bit. You realize that you're getting a little bit older. I know I'm only 56, but that time's coming. You know what I mean? And that's actually something I look forward to. There's another song, a lot of music. I listen to a lot of Christian music, worship, Hillsong Radio on Pandora. When I work out, I told Matt, when I work out, I have my hat down low and my headphones on. If that's happening, then I'm working out with Nicholas. And before every set, I say, "How many you want?" You know what I mean? It'll be 15 pops. I could literally hear them. You know what I mean? So that's the way that I cope with it. I told another client about that, and she said that's a really great idea. Because she lost her husband, and then that song I can only imagine. It's about when you die and you go to heaven and you see God. Well, and I always ask the question. I think it was on the Joe Rogan podcast. He was talking to Kid Rock, and he goes, if you went back in time, if you can go back in time, what would you do? And he goes, "I'd go back to, Jesus." And Joe Rogan's like, "What if no one was there?" He goes, "Even better. I get to spend the whole day with him." He goes, "No, what if no one was there?" He goes, "Oh, someone's there. He's there." You know what I mean? He goes, "How do you know?" He paused for a second. He goes, "My faith." Joe Rogan was like, "What a great answer." You know what I mean? So it's things like that. I get my healing from listening to other people and what they go through. You know what I mean? I cannot wait for the day that I can see Nicholas. That the hug is going to be the best hug I think I've ever got. So
Yeah, during your testimony, you used that word overcome. And of course, that's the title of our podcast for a reason, right? We've all got a story. We've all been through something. And I would think that your story is the greatest loss you can have. I think that that's probably something I never want to experience. I don't think Ryan ever does either. And I don't think you would want to experience it again, right? But through that, you found a way to help others overcome. It's not always about us. I think I've found that even in my surgery and, feeling out of shape and just coming back into the fitness industry after 3.5 years, feeling small, weak, skinny, broken in so many areas. And your testimony and watching you through the gym with your clients, it sets the bar for me. And so I'm thankful for the way you've gone through your trial because you've helped me. And that in turn helps me to realize, well, I need to, you know, pull up the socks and try a little harder to make sure that I'm being to others what you are to me. So, I want to thank you uh, for sharing that. Oh, I really don't like hearing those stories, to be honest with you. I know you had a hard time.
with great loss, Matt, always comes gain, right? And my son James had a son and named him Nicolo, and I have a grandson now, and him and Rowan are getting ready to have another baby in February, so another baby boy. So, that's why we live our lives, guys. The ups and downs, the highs, the lows. It's what makes life great. But Matt, you're a joy to work with, and to be there every day. Matt walks in, he's at the other end of the gym, and he doesn't even know what's coming, but he might know what's coming. It's, I give him a Aussie, 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 and then he responds, and it's just, that's it. That's what, you just acknowledge people's presence, you know what I mean? And I think as much as I may be helping you out, believe me, you're a big part of helping me out too, being on the team again, and it's a joy to work with you. So I'm honored.
Well, I will say this, Ryan, the only time Paulie and I have ever played golf, I can't remember, we were out with two other buddies. We were playing 2-on-2, right? And, I was having a pretty good day, which, helped me because I'm not always good. But Ryan, was my golf pro when I started, to try to get really serious. And so he'll get this story well. But from my recollection, you and I were going at each other all day, trying to knock each other off. And I think we got to the 18th. It's a par four, if I remember this well. And, we needed to win the hole. And there was a little bit of, taunting as happens on the golf course. But my recollection is someone giving me crap about not being able to draw the ball, which I don't generally draw. And to try and drive this green on the 18th par four, I would have to draw the ball. And, I know there is a God because he helped me hit a whopping drive off the tee, little slight right to left draw on the ball, chased it up there onto the green. And I won't repeat what you said as you drove off the tee box because this is a family show, but it was enough to clinch the W. And I remember I've never played with you since because I could never repeat that.
You're ducking me.
I'm definitely ducking you. Much, much better golfer than me. And I got lucky on the right hole. But Ryan, you're a good golfer too. So can we agree that at some point we get together, lads, and have a round? I would love to follow this episode up at some point with a caption of all three of us being able to have a round. We need a fourth, so we're going to have to figure out who that is. But I think we've had a guest on the show before that is also a golf pro, and I think maybe Paulie, maybe you and I team up against two pros.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Grant, who's been a guest with us previously, is a golf pro. Ryan's a retired golf pro, but I think maybe
Grant Price.
Yes, sir.
I love that guy.
Yeah, he's a good
Great guy.
dude. I think
Yeah,
maybe I've just thrown out the challenge there. I feel like I owe it to each of you because I've had such great relationships with each three of those people there. I'd be torn, but maybe it's a weekend trip instead. Maybe we actually have to rotate. So there's you pair up with each guy once during the weekend and we play those 3 rounds. So can I get your confirmation here that we're going to actually pull that off when I'm able to swing a club.
Hey, I'm always down for a good golf trip somewhere, so I'm in.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. We'll have to wrap some fitness into it, get a little workout in, and hit the golf course. It could be a nice little boys trip.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. And, Ryan, I don't know if you've got anything you want to ask him, but these sort of episodes where I literally feel like I'm losing my emotions more than the guest, it takes, I wouldn't say it takes a toll on me, but I really can't speak enough as to how much I appreciate you being on today and sharing that testimony. And I don't think this is the last time I'll have you on here, but is there anything you would like to finish off with, either Ryan or Paul? Because this is such a powerful episode. I think people want to listen to it twice because it's almost like two halves. It's almost, chapter 1 and chapter 2 within one episode. Ryan, you got anything you want to add? Or Paul, you want to finish this off? Because I'll process this for the next week until we do another episode. It's hit me that hard.
Yeah, no, it's been great to have you on, Paul, and I can tell you guys have a great culture there at Crunch. If I were in the area, I'd definitely be in the gym training with you guys. I guess if anybody wants to find you, are you taking on new clients, Paul, or are you filled up?
Yeah, I take on. I got some lot of snowbirds in our area, so I got about 4 or 5 guys coming back in the next couple of weeks, and that's gonna max me out. And
Yeah.
um, it'll be a nice winter. I do like to enjoy golf, so play a couple afternoons. I think my back is really bad. It's getting bad, so I do like maybe an 18 and then 2 9s.
Uh-huh.
I can't do 2 days in a row anymore. That's just not gonna happen unless we do the golf trip, and then I'll take some Advil. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, in closing, just I mean, we all go through difficult times in our lives. I'm not saying mine is any more difficult than what someone else is going through. If it wasn't the loss of a child or something like that, it could be difficult for them. So we all have our levels of what we can handle and what we can't handle. And I definitely got pushed to the limits. And I'm grateful that I have a great woman in my life and that's super supportive of me and loves me to death. And just about sharing it. This is big for me. This was hard. I was talking to Ryan before you got on, Matt, and I was actually nervous. And I'm still nervous. You know what I mean? But I feel I'm getting a little more comfortable as we carry on, and I know we're getting ready to close up. But don't do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. I got help from. I don't want this to go by without mentioning one of my former clients, Jason, was a phenomenal therapist. We had a session, about 2.5 hour session, and what he did was he unlocked what I went through with the loss of Nicholas, and seeing him, picturing the accident, seeing him in the hospital bed, and I couldn't see anything for a couple of years. Other than that, I didn't remember bringing him to kindergarten. I didn't remember coaching his basketball team, and Jason did a really good job of unlocking that for me and putting that away. Which is don't remember him for that. He lived 22 great years, and remember him for those things. You know what I mean? So I'm super grateful for that, and seek help when you need it, talk to friends, and have faith.
I love it.
Yeah, I
Good stuff,
appreciate that.
guys.
Yeah, I know Strength to Overcome has that 2 in it, and there's a reason for it, and you've just wrapped it up beautifully for us, Paul. So we've been saying it for 25 weeks, and now you've got some real life testimony of someone else saying it. So it's not just Ryan or me; it's those out there that are hurting. Right? Don't do it alone. Reach out to someone, and I know a lot of people that we know at the gym are going to want to dig in on this episode. So I appreciate you being vulnerable in a place where a lot of people may not know this story, and for those that are listening, be respectful of Paulie, and he is working at the gym and he's working hard. So, find the quiet time to, give him a little shout out, fist pump, a hug, whatever it is. But it was a lot for you to get on here. I know we've pushed this back a few weeks, so thank you again for sharing. I do think there's a follow-up episode here in the future somewhere, so we look forward to that one. Maybe it's talking about a golf swing and how to avoid back injuries, and seeing us as trainers. All 3 of us are trainers, and only 2 of you are good golfers. So, Paulie, thanks for sharing it. Ryan,
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, guys, like, subscribe, share this with a friend, send it to a friend, someone you think might get some value out of this podcast, and show Paul some love as we continue the journey. And overcome the things in life that need to be overcome. So appreciate y'all out there, and we'll catch you next week.
Cheers.